All right, we are building on Lightning with LSATs. I think this plays in really just flows nicely after the conversation you are having just with Evan and about the different services you can provide with Lightning and how people can get paid via Lightning rather than other more centralized services. And one of the tools that might come in really handy in trying to set that up would be LSATs. So let's dig into it. Oh, hold on. There we go. All right. So what we'll do here is we'll talk about what are LSATs, talk about why LSATs, why you should care about them. We'll do a bit of a deep dive into how LSATs are created. Then we'll look at the different use cases for them. Then we'll do the demo. And then if, time permitting, we'll see how we go. We'll dive into the tools for working with LSATs. I'm using a tool called Aperture, and we can look at how that works. And if we have time, we'll go into the server and look at config files and how that gets all set up. And I've got lots of links for you all in the slides. If you are interested in this and decide you want to play with it too, there's tons of resources, and I'll link to them here. And then we'll do some Q&A, again, time permitting. We definitely want to get down to the demo, and then the rest we'll just see how we go. All right, so if you want to participate and try out LSATs for yourself, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. I have a demo site, which was working as of about an hour ago, so we should be able to do the demo. What you'll need to follow along with that is Postman, or just know how to use curl on the command line. Just any tool to make API calls should be sufficient. You'll just need to make a GET request, and then you'll need to construct your LSAT and put it in the header of your request. In order to construct an LSAT, it does require proof of payment. So you'll have to be able to send a Bolt 11, pay a Bolt 11 invoice on the testnet, because this is all running on the testnet. And you'll have to have a node or a wallet that will show you the pre-image from making that payment, because you need to grab that pre-image as proof of payment. So if you have these requirements met, then you can participate in the demo. All right, so let's dive into it. What are LSATs? All right, LSATs are Lightning Service Authentication Tokens, right? So they're a new standard for charging for services and authenticating users on distributed networks. They allow users to authenticate and show proof of payment for services with just a token rather than a username or password. All right, so we could spend an entire session just on talking about why that's important, why it's important to be able to authenticate and use services with just a token rather than a username and password, and how that could change the structure of services on the internet. And we could do a deep dive into that. But since we're doing more of a technical deep dive today, we're just kind of skim over that lightly. Just mention that it's really awesome, because imagine if you, as say someone who's providing a service, imagine if you could not need to collect and store any user data, not even an email address, right? So you could have services that respect your customer's privacy, and it really eases the burden on you running a service, not having to collect data, but then also protect that data, right? So you won't have to deal so much with that data breach issue and whatnot. You could do metered billing, which is cool. You can do stateless verification. How about as a user? What if you could use Lightning payments to pay for services and APIs without creating an account? You all were just talking about how much you hate subscription services, and I so agree. There's so many times, like how many times does your friend send you some article you want to read that's behind a paywall? It's like I would totally pay 25 cents to read that article. Absolutely would, but no way am I going to sign up for a year's subscription to some new service that I'm never going to read it, right? So LSATs are a tool that could potentially help change this model, right? So you don't have to have a subscription. You can just pay, I'm just going to pay you while I stream that content, or I'm just going to pay you 25 cents or 2 cents or $1 or whatever the case may be for some particular piece of content that I'd like to have access to. So that would be really, really cool. I really hope that happens. All right, so imagine if you could also get an LSAT, right, this token, and then you could narrow the permissions on it and share it with others, maybe even sell it to others, who knows, right? So you could say, hey, I have this access token, which is good for a month, but I'm gonna narrow it down and say it's good for a week, and then I'm gonna give it to you so you can use it for a week, right? You can do that. It just gives you much more fine-grained control when interacting with these things, which is pretty cool. All right, and what if you could not have to reveal your identity to a third-party authentication service? Privacy, wouldn't that be nice? And also just less reliance on these third parties. You know, how often do you sign into things using, you know, Google or Facebook or one of these, you know, tech giants? And what if you didn't have to do that if you didn't want to? That would be quite cool. All right, so that is very, very roughly, although again, we could spend an entire session on that. That's, you know, what an LSAT does for you and why you might care about it. And now we'll go into how it actually works. First, I need to give a shout out to Leo at Lightning Labs, because this next set of slides here that goes through all the hashing that happens, these were created by him, and he was kind enough to let me borrow them. So thank you, Leo. All right, from cookies to LSATs. All right, so cookies are the current status quo of identifiers, right? You go to some sort of service, you have to set up an account, you give them your information, or you authenticate via Google or Facebook or some other one of those. And then you get a little cookie, which is some data, which you put on your computer, your device, and then that authenticates you, right? But we're going to take that and say, that's pretty basic, right? Maybe we can expand upon that and make that much cooler. So we're going to talk about macaroons, which are fancy cookies, right? They're cookies that are signed, right? Well, you have a secret. Excuse me, I've got to let the dog into the room before she scratches up my door. There we go. Okay, so you can, you know, add some, you know, a secret, a key to it, and then you do some hashing, and then you can use that to, you know, attenuate these things and add. Who let the dogs out? Yeah, let her in. She's going to want to go back out shortly as soon as she spots a lizard somewhere. But we'll deal with that when it happens. So you can, you know, add features to them, and, you know, there's some cryptography involved, so you can kind of, you know, have a bit more trust in them. All right, so that's going from a cookie to a macaroon, which we'll walk through in a second. But then we can go from cookie to macaroon to LSAT. So that's an LSAT is essentially a macaroon, but that includes proof of payment. So we will dive in to how this all works. Okay, so let's start with a cookie, which is just this ID, this number here. This is an identifier, often a random number with metadata or instructions. All right, it's a bare asset. Your cookie is your key. All right, drawbacks are permissions and metadata need to be maintained in a back-end database, right? So once you authenticate some user, you give them a cookie, you kind of have to keep a record of all of what's going on. Okay, this cookie is maybe associated with this account, they're allowed to do this or that or the other thing, right? It's a lot of maintenance on the back end. All right, and so can we do better with macaroons? Spoilers, yes we can. Here's how. All right. Turning a cookie into a macaroon by signing it. So essentially you have a key, which is just a very, very simple secret, right? Here we're just using the actual word secret, right? And that is our secret that we're using to, you know, secure these macaroons. So very, very simply, right, this is what's called an HMAC, which is hashed message authentication code. Basically what you do, right, is you take that secret with that ID. You can do this on your command line if you'd like. You take the secret, you put it together with the ID, and you hash it. Boom, and you get this hash. Now, someone cannot reproduce that hash, right, unless they have the secret, right? So if this, you know, you took this instead of just this ID, right? But instead, you took that very simple cookie and turned it into a macaroon just by adding this secret to it and hashing it. So if someone shows up and hands you this, they're going to give you that ID and that hash, right? And you can look at that, and your server can then go, okay, if I take my secret and I hash it together with that ID, do I get this string here? Do I get this hex number? And then if it matches, then yes, indeed, only someone who is aware of that secret could have created this hash. Therefore, I can be pretty assured that this came from my server. So I can give it a thumbs up and let it through, right? But let's go through, that's the very basics of it. Let's just go through step by step how we can, add to it and then get all the way down to the actual LSATs. Okay, so one of the first things we could do is add an expiry date. This one's a couple of months here in the past, but you could add an appropriate expiry date to it. So you have, now we're going into how you can attenuate them, right? So first we had just the ID, we added our secret to it, we hashed it, boom, that's our macaroon. Now we're going to add another attenuation to it. We're going to say this expires at this particular date. So we add in the expiry date, and we do it again. Essentially, we take, so we take that first, macaroon that we got, that, hex string there, and then we hash it again together, this time with the expiry date, and then boom, we get a new one, right? That's now our new macaroon. Cool. And now we just need that new data, because if you then have this is your macaroon, and then you show up to a server and you give them this information, with this information, if I know the secret, then I can recreate that, boom, 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 all the way down to that final line. And then again, I can know this came from my server. So this ID has this, macaroon, which is valid until this date. All right, we can do that again. So a user could attenuate this again. Maybe you want to give it to your friend and let them use this service for a day. You can add this other attenuation on it, which says, hey, it's good just until this day, right? Go through the exact same process, take that, what the macaroon was, put it together with the new attenuation, hash it, boom, you get a new one. And again, the server can go through the same steps. If I know the secret, I can recreate the whole thing. All right, so hopefully we got that. Now we get to the how do we take these cool cookies that you can attenuate and then turn them into LSATs. All right, so now I'm assuming everyone kind of has a pretty basic understanding of Bitcoin and Lightning. So what we're going to be talking about here are Bolt 11 payments on the Lightning network. And when you send a Bolt 11 payment, you in the invoice that you get to pay, there is this payment hash. When you then successfully, or when you send payment, then what you get sent back on the network, go through the whole settlement process, what the information that works its way back to you is this pre-image. And the payment hash, right, is just a hash of that pre-image. The pre-image is like another secret number, right? And if you then are able to obtain that pre-image, that is proof that you have indeed completed that payment. So in a Bolt 11 payment, the pre-image counts as proof that you did indeed pay. So what a server can do is say, hey, and we'll watch this in action when we do the demo portion of this, is you request, in this case, we have a very, very simple content server up, and you're gonna, make a GET request at, a specific path and say, hey, I'd like this particular piece of content. The server is gonna stop you and it says, whoa, whoa, you gotta pay for that. So here's, 402 error code, payment required, right? Then I'm also going to give you an invoice that you can pay. But I'm also going to give you a macaroon, and that macaroon is attenuated with the payment hash, right, from that invoice. So I give you this macaroon. Once you pay that, then you can give me that macaroon back with proof of payment, and then I can let you in. So the idea here is that we'll just take this macaroon, how we've constructed it. It's got expiry date. and then we'll just attenuate it with that payment hash. Cool. And then we have this new macaroon, which is attenuated with the payment hash. This is what it looks like here. And then we can add to it our pre-image that we got from making that payment. So now imagine you're the server. You've gone and created this macaroon that, attenuated with the payment hash. You've given it to someone along with the Lightning invoice. They then pay that. Then they have the macaroon plus the pre-image. Then they give it all back to you and say, hey, give me access to your content. I've got proof that I paid. So the service can now verify the full LSAT. We'll go through this next section here, which is just walking through how it verifies it one more time. And then I've gone through this part a bit quickly. So if anyone has any questions, once we finish this verification portion, would be a great time to ask them. All right. So again, the server just recreates this whole, just takes this information that we've got right here and just recreates the whole macaroon. And if it has the secret, right, then it can recreate it and get the exact same data at the bottom that is present here. And if it can successfully recreate it using this secret, then the server can be assured that, okay, indeed, this person, I created this macaroon and someone's now giving it back to me. All right, so the first thing you do, again, is you just take that ID, you add to it the secret, you do the hash, boom, you get that new number down there. Then you add to that the expiry date, you hash it again, boom, you get the next number. Then you add the payment hash, which is from that invoice that you gave that customer trying to get your content. You do the hash again, boom, you get that one. Now, when it's an LSAT, you also do the additional verification of taking that pre-image and making sure that hashing it equals that payment hash so that you can be sure that that string they're giving you is the secret that was then hashed into that payment hash. All right, so if you go through it and evaluate the macaroon and then verify just that the pre-image matches the payment hash from the macaroon, then you can be like, you've ticked all your boxes. There we go. I did indeed create this macaroon, give it to someone along with an invoice. They paid the invoice, and here they are. Boom, authentication, done. Let that person in to your service. All right. So, here we go. We'll just watch this nice little animation that we made for, we have a video up on the Lightning Labs YouTube channel. That walks through just the basics that we're discussing here, and this is the animation from that. Just gives you a nice visual. Okay, so if anyone has any questions on what we just covered there, now would be a good time to go into it. If you really want to dig into, all the specific hashing algorithms used and how it all works. There are lots of great links in the LSAT section up on docs.lightning.engineering, and I'll link to some of them here as well. All right, so LSAT benefits. All right, can be attenuated by the service or the user. No need to maintain a database of clients. Really makes things much easier for a service operator. All right, permissions can be complicated and unique. So you can kind of create what you like on there. You can say, I'm going to give this particular, I'm going to give someone access to this particular portion of my services, or limit it by date, or whatever else you can think of that your server is capable of verifying. You can do that too. All right, it includes proof of payment, but not price, just includes proof of payment. But if you can feel satisfied that your server did indeed create the macaroon that has the payment hash, and then they have the pre-image that matches that hash, you can be like, okay, they paid the amount that I told them to pay, whatever that may have been at that time. All right. And then allows for wholesale pricing. You can add third-party caveats. It's cool stuff. All right, there are a couple of drawbacks to this. Hard to revoke. Basically, the way you can make a macaroon invalid going forward is to then just remove that secret off your server, delete it, so you can no longer validate it, right? So that's kind of, it has to be a big bulk deletion, right? You can't just delete one user's macaroon because you don't really have things organized quite like that, unless you have maybe different tiers of services that are signed with macaroons using different keys, perhaps. Then you'd have to delete everything in that particular tier when you deleted that key. All right. LSATs include an identifier, which, okay. Okay, so if you want to specifically blacklist someone, right, then you have to include some sort of identifier, but then that goes back to you have to maintain a database, right? So there are some drawbacks to doing it this way. All right, but you need to know the secret to verify them. If you lose your secret, you can't verify any macaroons, any of your own macaroons, which is a problem. All right, and again, here are further reading if you want to really dig into how macaroons are created and really get all the nitty-gritty specifics. This is an excellent place to go. And this tool is excellent. I'd forgotten about it and just accidentally ran across it again today on the interwebs. It's an excellent tool if you want to play with this stuff. All right, cool. So now we'll go into maybe some ideas for what LSATs could be used for, how someone could use them. Okay, so you can imagine if you could use Lightning payments to pay for services and APIs without creating an account or manually obtaining keys. Now, there are so many different ways that we could use this stuff, and I'm sure all kinds of things that I haven't even begun to consider. My favorite use case, which I'm really waiting to have happen, is to pay for content on the internet. I would really be so happy to just have some browser extension where I could just pay 5 cents to read that article instead of signing up to all the different services. And a lot of times I am really happy to pay content creators for giving me good content. I just don't want to do a subscription because I'm going to read your stuff, you know, twice a year, right? So I think that's the use case I'm really excited about, but there's so many things out there that would be quite neat. All right, so no need to collect and store user data. So privacy improvements, which are also really awesome. I think these are repeats from what we discussed earlier. All right, so you can do paid API services. You can do Lightning paywalls. Like LSATs could be used with a variety of computing services, decentralized metered container execution services, serverless micro VMs, and many, many more that we haven't even thought of yet. Maybe you all will think of some really, really cool use cases for them. All right, here's some examples of where LSATs are used currently. I actually need to update this slide. I've learned about a few more recently. So I think there are cool tools that are starting to be used more and more. All right, so now we've come to the demo portion. I believe I'm sharing my full screen here. So I should be able to show you all this. Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm going to exit the full screen here, and I'll show you this little website that I created. Hannah's mildly amusing crypto memes. The meme functionality is not up at the moment. We're just going to do quotes today, but the meme functionality will be back very, very soon. Just trying to get the content server to serve up images properly. But I'm going to add some more instructions here too, I think, in the future. So you can bookmark this URL if you'd like. I'm going to add a few more things to it. So this will be just a general LSAT demo site that you can play with in the future. But let's walk through how we're going to do this. So we're going to do just a basic GET request. All right, so here is my postman. Let's just, what's that? That doesn't matter. Okay, all right. So here we're going to do quote number 1. I'm going to turn off this authentication. All right, so I'm going to hit this server and be like, hey, give me the first quote you have. It's going to send me a response, 402. It's like, hey, you got to pay for that, right? And what it's going to do here is in the headers, it's going to give me this bit of information. So here we can see we have a macaroon. And if I scroll down, we have an invoice. All right. So what we do then is we need both these pieces of information. We then go pay the invoice. You'd pay for my mildly amusing memes? Yes, I'm going to be testnet rich. There are a couple of mildly amusing ones, which will be up shortly. So you need, to do that, you need to have a wallet. This is all running on the testnet, so you need to have a testnet wallet or node that will show you the pre-image once the payment is made. So then you make that payment and you use it. You take that pre-image and you create an LSAT. How you do that is you add it to, do I have this? Yep. You add this to the header of your request. You say authorization, LSAT, and then you put macaroon, pre-image. So we'll come back here. And now you can see that I have this ready. It's authorization, LSAT. And I think, can I expand this? There we go. You can see here's the macaroon. There's the colon right there, here. And then there's my pre-image. All right. So previously, the server had told me that payment required. And then I say, oh, okay, all right. I paid the invoice. I've created an LSAT. I'm going to send my request again. And ta-da, it sends me back this quote. LSATs are fun. For testnet wallets, I generally just use my own testnet node. Right? I have a testnet node, and so I'll just pay it on there because I'm playing with nodes all day anyhow. So for me, it's just easier to just log in there and pay it. There are a number of Lightning wallets that will let you do testnets. Make a payment on testnet. I'm not quite sure which ones will show you the pre-image though. So if you have a testnet node, it's best to just use that, I would say, for this demo. All right, now the way this service is set up and the way my server is set up at the moment is that once you have this LSAT, this gives you access to any quote on any of the quotes, right? So I have different tiers of content. This one, I think I did actually set the price to 10 Satoshis, even though it's listed as 0 right there. When I do the memes, because they're memes and they're extra cool, I'll set the price at 20 testnet Satoshis. But we can check this out and see, okay, let's try quote number 2. And this LSAT should give us access to that quote as well. And ta-da, it does. So there's a nice quote from Satoshi. All right, cool. So the demo actually worked. That's awesome. Now, if anyone has any questions, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll dive into tools for working with LSATs. All right, cool. All right, so Aperture is the tool for the moment for working with LSATs. At least it's the one I used. This is the GitHub repo where you can download it. And this here is all the docs that will walk you through how to get it set up and how to get it running, how to configure it, etc. Here is the YAML file, which is handy to have a link to that example YAML file for configuration because it's full of comments. It'll just break down what everything will do for you. Also, this is a YouTube video that was created by Elle, one of the engineers at Lightning Labs who works on some of this stuff. And she created just a fabulous video that just shows you how to just walks you through, gives you just a visual guide, someone walking you through setting up Aperture. I used it, that video, when setting up this little demo server, so I highly recommend that. All right, let us now walk through. I think what would be best is here is my server, and I am just going to show you how I set this up using these various tools. So I have one server that's just running that very, very basic WordPress site that I showed you that just, has the nice title and lists some instructions, and I'll add some, I'll make it slightly nicer looking and add some more instructions and, keep adding things to it as I go. But that's running on one server. And then I have this separate server, which is the subdomain, which is the, memes.innovativecommercegroup.com, right? So this is the server where I'm actually serving up the content and creating LSATs or macaroons and validating LSATs. So I can show you what's going on here. I'm just in, my home directory. I have Aperture running. This is just the little Aperture demo that Elle created that I'm using here, which just is a very, very simple content server just to serve up this at the moment quotes, and then it's going to serve up memes shortly. But you can see I'm also running Bitcoin here, and I'm running LND here. So I have Bitcoin running because LND needs a back end, and I'm running LND. And what's really nice about Aperture is if you run it right alongside LND like this, they work together very, very well. Right? Aperture is the program that, is the gatekeeper, right? That, makes sure that delivers invoices to people to be paid, and then validates the LSATs when the request comes in. So Aperture requires LND so that it can generate invoices to give to people, and then LND, of course, requires a Bitcoin backend. So let's go through quickly and just look at my config file, which, there we go, hopefully is in a decent state. I think I took a lot of the comments out of it for my own readability, but again, I'm going to go, where's the exit button? There we go. If we just go to here, and let's open that up. So here's the full YAML file. You can see all kinds of great comments here that can walk you through how to set this up. But we'll look through mine. All right, so what I've done on this particular server is I've got Nginx running that's handling the requests that are coming in. I set up, a TLS cert so I can do HTTPS. It's handling all of that, and then Nginx is sending requests through to Aperture here. So what Aperture knows is it's just running on localhost at this port. This authenticator area here, this is settings for the LND node that we use to generate payment requests. So I'm just telling it, hey, LND is running on localhost here on this machine at this port. Here's where you get the TLS cert to talk to it. Here's where you get the macaroons, because LND also use macaroons to give people permissions to interact with it. So here's where you can get, an admin macaroon to do all the things you need to do. FYI, we're running on testnet. Cool. You have to use etcd just as a database on the background, And at the moment, the only service I have set up is just this quotes service. So this is, it's saying, hey, listen for requests coming in here. Any request that comes in that matches this path, right? This is just some regex. That is for this service. And, we're charging 10 Satoshis for that. here is how you go get that content. This little very, very simple content server is running on port 9000. Because, you know, Nginx has already handled, you know, HTTPS, you know, and that verification and whatnot, then this can just be HTTP, very simple. We don't need this in this particular setup. And then we can add constraints here. I think this is an expiration date added to the macaroon. So this is really a very, very simplistic setup, right? This is not like professional grade for any service that you'd want to run, but this is just gives you a very rough idea of how you could just set this up and get rolling to experiment with it yourself. And then, of course, if you really want to dig into it, you can see I'm going to add another service, you know, called memes for serving up the memes. You can set dynamic pricing or static pricing. There's all kinds of different things you can do here. And this file will walk you through the various different options for working with that.
Right. This is some super interesting stuff, LSATs. We went down the technical rabbit hole there, but I want to like draw us up a little bit. Yes, so with LSATs, it seems that you can also solve some problems, some UX problems where, you know, instead of doing payments for every piece of content or every request that you want to make, you can actually have that token represent multiple requests. Is that accurate?
Well, that's kind of what I've done here, is that you have to pay once to get access to the quotes, right? That's the current setup that I have here. And when I do the memes, I think it'll be the same. You'll have to pay 20 testnet Satoshis, and then you can get access to, you know, the whole tier of memes. Maybe I'll change it in the future. And you can with Aperture do some dynamic pricing and charge differently for you know, each different piece of content, or however you want to divvy it up. So you have a lot of control over how you want to do that. For me, it was just simplest here to be like, hey, you get an LSAT for quotes, and then you get an LSAT for memes. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So okay, so let's see. Aperture, you said it's mainly for testnet. Can you also use it for?
It's not mainly for testnet. You can absolutely use it on production as well, on mainnet.
Okay, because some folks might get like a little bit, you know, like our stack isn't like built so well for testnet. You know, it's you know, like where do you find a testnet wallet? Then where do you get a testnet faucet and stuff?
I know, and I think there's a lot of builders on Lightning. They're just like, I can test with really small amounts, so it's fine. I'll just do everything on mainnet, and I don't like that. I like to do things correctly on testnet. So I haven't built a testnet wallet, but I have like a nice testnet node that I maintain. So, you know, I try to support people building, you know, on testnet and then going to mainnet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where can we get the testnet coins from, for example?
So there are testnet faucets that you can go to. I can't remember them offhand, but just go to, you know, a search engine and type in, you know, Bitcoin testnet faucet, and you'll find a number of different links, and people will be able to send you some, or, you know, just ping some people. You can always just DM me on Twitter and be like, Hannah, can I have a testnet coin? I'm like, sure. So, yeah. Okay. What I demoed here is the server side of things, right? And I think it would be great to have a lot more tools sort of for the user side of things that would, you know, just create those LSATs for you, you know, because right now it's like, it's clunky, right? I have to, okay, copy this out of my curl request and pay this, copy, paste, then create that. And it's not terribly difficult, right? You just make a payment, copy, paste, format, send the request again. But it's having more tools to just do this, you know, in a wallet, in a browser, that sort of stuff. I think that would be really awesome.
Okay, so the wallet would have to, be able to kind of like store that macaroon or that token for continued requests, right?
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, and it's a very small bit of data, so you would just have to grab that, just be aware of that format. Okay, it's 402 error code, here's a macaroon, grab that, pay invoice, concatenate, store. Yeah, it's not terribly difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that you mentioned or that I realized as well is that you could start, like, you could share this token with someone else, but you're also saying if it has this identifier, someone could ban that token. I don't like that idea. I like the idea of like just being able to share that token around because like maybe this gives me access.
Right? But it was noted because it's actually more difficult to blacklist someone or to ban someone using this architecture than it is with sort of the standard architecture we use now.
So this is not scripted. This is not on the schedule or anything. But I thought, hey, this was a cool project. It got announced a couple of days ago. Sandbox.tv, the new update, and I'm gonna let's get Chad to give us a little rundown of what that is.
Chad's project here?
Yes, that's exactly, yeah.
Oh,
so we just got
to talk about Sandbox because I'm going to get it wrong. You can do a much better job.
Go on, Chad.
Yeah, so I built Sandbox, which is just like a jukebox, a lightning jukebox for the internet. It essentially plays YouTube videos to Twitch TV, and it has the Twitch chat room in there, so everyone could chat and play videos and watch them together. When I first implemented it, every time you wanted to add a video to the queue to be played, or if you wanted to like bump up the sats attached to a video to play, you'd have to scan another QR code, and the whole experience felt clunky and it didn't feel very interactive. So I was looking for a solution to make it more fluid and dynamic, and I found out about LSATs, and that was my solution, and it's been working pretty good so far. Yeah, my implementation is a little odd. I have this concept called credits. I'm sure everyone here has probably used a jukebox in the real world, so it feels a lot like that. You put a $1 bill in the machine and you get like 4 credits, and you could pick a couple songs. So that's kind of how the LSATs work on mine. How'd
you implement it? Are you using Aperture as well?
I actually looked into using Aperture, but when I first started, I was using a bolt wall, and I just continued to use that. My implementation is a little weird and irregular. So Aperture, they both have their features that they support right now and don't. So yeah, bolt wall for now. And then LSAT.js on the front end to handle the LSATs.
I really like these ideas of maybe doing like movie nights for Bitcoiners and stuff. Because I think version 1, if I'm right, Chad, like version 1, you could only play a video for like 5 minutes, right? Or a maximum of 5 minutes, and then it would skip to the next one in the queue. But I thought, how cool would it be if we could get a bunch of Bitcoiners together and play some like movie on YouTube, and then now that we can play it for like longer than 5 minutes, we can just keep topping it up using these LSAT credits. So yeah, super awesome project, and maybe just a really cool way to get some of the Bitcoin community together and spread a bit of love. But it's super easy to play around with. I mean, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, all you have to do is just click buy credits, and then it'll ask you how many you want to buy. And it's like one credit per sat. So you can just buy like, 20 credits or something like that. You then go to the add to queue, and you find like a URL, like a YouTube URL, put it in there, like type in how many credits you want to like attach to the video, and then you basically add it to the queue. So it's like super, super easy to use. And I guess like the more credits you put on your video, like the higher it skips up the queue. So yeah, just a really fun way to play around with it. I think a really nice way for people to just like kind of play around with like maybe one of their first interactions. It was really easy to use my WebLN wallet. I used Alby to pay for it, but I think it also supports, does it also support LN URL? I could like scan to pay as well, right?
Right now it's just the standard Bolt 11 invoice. I haven't added anything additional to that, but maybe for this hackathon, I was thinking of adding the WebLN support, so you don't even have to scan the QR code. You could just buy credits and use them.
Yeah, I was just attempting to stream this stream in Sandbox.
I tried to do that as well, but it doesn't support live videos.
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh no!
Yeah. That's something I want to add now, that you could continue the video, because I think that'd be pretty cool.
So here we have these credits, right? And you know, you've kind of like deposited like this 100 sats and stuff like that. But oh, sorry, this 23 sats, because one sat equal 1 credit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I think, you know, one of the things that I have, like one pattern that I have not been too fond of is the aspect of like depositing and like getting funds custodied into a service, right? So there's some, like for example, I'm trying out like Lightning Roulette and stuff, and I have to like deposit, and then like I get those back and stuff like that. It just felt kind of, you know, yeah, I'm losing custody. But I mean, I might warm up to the idea of these LSAT tokens, which I can share with someone else, right? So if it's possible, for example, for Ed to like expose that token to me, and then, sorry, for the website to expose that token, and then allow me to then utilize it as well. Then we're kind of like, you know, you're sharing a Netflix account or something, right? Like in this kind of way. What do you think about that, Hannah?
You know, just to be able to get access to something and then share it with others. I think that there's probably all kinds of businesses that will be built up around that I'm not quite envisioning yet at the moment. You know, I could definitely see that happening. But no, it's also really cool just because think about like how we all do, you know, probably all have a shared Netflix account or Amazon Prime account, you know, of all kinds of different varieties. So it's kind of, we do tend to like just share services in our little communities and families. I think that's something that's just very natural. So to be able to do that maybe a bit more specifically with a bit more fine-grained control would be really awesome.
That's interesting. You said there's a bunch of stuff that come out of that. I guess one of it could be a marketplace, right? Because there are these like gift card marketplaces, for instance,
yeah.
Right? And yeah, like if we start looking at things like Paxful and these Bot Cash Me and stuff like this, these peer-to-peer exchanges, we can maybe this could be like a new format for this gift card business. And that whole gift card industry is like super weird and interesting. How people kind of like use it as this. It's super wild. People are using gift cards basically as currency and for cross-border payments. And in some places or in some platforms like Paxful, it allows you to kind of like sell those gift cards for Bitcoin. Which is like,
well, for cross-border payments is probably a superior medium of exchange, right? You're not going to get your money caught in a bank for a bank wire for a week. So, yeah.
But one of the issues is like you can't cryptographically prove them, right?
Right.
So that's kind of like one of the issues there. Chad, what do you think about like implementing this kind of feature of sharing the LSAT? How do you think that would function on the user experience side?
Yeah, so I put a little bit of thought into this. Actually, on the website right now, if you click on the little section that displays your credits, I added a feature to save your current LSAT, and it just copies the LSAT into your clipboard, so you can paste it anywhere you want. And then there's also a little input to load a LSAT. So it's a little difficult because really you have one LSAT token that has a corresponding amount of credits that are saved on the server. So you kind of get into the account versus like UTXO model when you talk about these LSAT tokens. So the way I did it, just for simplicity in the first implementation, is you can load a second LSAT token. Like I posted one in the chat on the stream. If you load it in, it will just take whatever credits are available on with that token, and it just applies those credits to your current LSAT that's stored in your browser cookies. That was just the simplest way for now. I didn't want to make it too confusing, but you can share and load them as is today. And I think that's one of the cool features of the LSATs.
Do you have any advice for makers and stuff in the community now who might want to like get some of this implemented? And like, what other fun kind of ideas? Like, if you didn't build Sandbox, share some of your ideas for everyone else.
I would just say the tools are all there. It's not that difficult. I'm definitely not a pro. I'm not a web developer or anything professionally, and I was able to build this. So it's definitely doable, and there's like a lot of things you could build. As far as ideas, I guess I could share something that at least I'm working on right now, something new that I think would be fun. It's very similar to Satbox as it is now. And if any of you guys have ever seen it, but there's this stream called Twitch Plays Pokemon, where you could the viewers can control one single instance of a Game Boy, and they try to beat the game by inputting chat commands. I'm just going to build the same thing where it just like Satbox, you have a queue of videos, you just have a queue of moves, and everyone would try to come together and control the character. Try to beat the game, but it'd be using LSAT tokens, and yeah.
We were talking about like messaging and stuff before. Like, are you messaging the website, or is it like peer-to-peer messaging?
Wait, can you expand on that?
So like those commands are basically some kind of message, right?
Yeah.
And do they get sent to like the other pairs, or do they get sent to like the central server?
Oh yeah. It's just all regular client server communication. So when you go to, on Satbox, you go to add a video, it's just like any regular communication on like a standard website, except you have that LSAT token as the cookie that's passing the request. So if you've built any regular website, it operates exactly the same. There's nothing really that fancy going on, at least in my implementation.
We had an ideas contest on the Bolt Fun Twitter last week, and someone suggested using LSATs for this Noster relay. Hannah, do you know about this thing called Noster?
I do.
Yeah. What does that mean, and like why would someone want to use it for like this relay thing?
No,
like,
I love this idea, right? So I'm a bit like one-dimensional with LSAT sometimes, where I'm just fixated on this idea that we like need to improve how we do content on the internet. And with Noster, it's the idea is you can do this content relay, and some people are thinking about using it, in decentralized forms of social media, etc. And you'd be able to, pay for perhaps content producers for content via that. And I'm quite convinced that these two concepts are going to come together, and we're going to have something resembling, this decentralized content server, whether it's Noster or something similar to that, get mixed together with an LSAT or something very similar to that, to come together to really change how we do. I really hope change how we do content on the internet, and maybe even social media, which would be really interesting. And there's just, we could spend a whole hour just talking about incentives and interaction, and but I think these tools, right, these access tokens, Lightning payments, decentralized content, like these are just amazing tools that I think are going to reshape how we interact online in the future.
Yeah, and one of those things is for like with the Noster relay example, or just like any API stuff, it's for spam prevention, right? So one of the issues that you want to like kind of address with like if you're creating a social network or like a user contributed website is that how do you prevent spam, right? So if you
have to buy an LSAT that lets you comment on something,
exactly.
Like there's tons of different ways to do it, but yeah.
Yeah, it could be like a basic like invoice payment for every single like a Bolt 11 invoice payment for every single like action, Or if you want to kind of like bulk certain actions together for like, because you don't want to do like individual payments, whether they take too long or whether they, like you want to offer like a better deal than 1 Satoshi. So 1 Satoshi could equal to like 1 million requests. And that's still an amount of money, right? You could choose how much kind of like requests you want to make, or how much access, or how much time even. But then what this is that, you know, the users of your application are they got to pay for it. So if they got to pay for it, then you still end up benefiting, because if they do want to put spam, then you could like either raise your rates still, or whatever. But at the end of the day, you're still making money, right? Your service is still making money. And then we start thinking about like, okay, like, you know, I don't want to use this service anymore. For instance, yeah, this I'm not gonna go on my cow milking rant again. I did that last time. I'm not gonna go. Chad,
I like it now. I remember that one now. Yeah.
You should have been here, Chad.
Oh, I heard that one. It was good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is all Roy, and I love it. But yeah, like I got a Netflix account, and I'm just trying to chill. I'm just by myself, right? But like sometimes I'm not chilling, and I just want to see like I don't want to be paying 10, 15. How much is it now? Like $15 a month? I don't need to pay for that. I watch like, you know, like 5 movies or something, you know? So like, yeah, this is, so what I would like to do is like, hey, does someone want to buy my LSAT token, right? You know, you get access to Netflix when I'm not using it.
Service, but I'm not going to be using it today. You know, you can use it.
Or ever again. And then boom, I put it down in the marketplace, LSAT marketplace. Let's go.